Ooh, that gives me the chills.
Wow. Interesting thought to go and interesting thought to go and seek out that which was written from a completely different perspective that we're not privy to. I appreciate the exposure at the minimum. Wheezy. Remember to write it down. Don't forget to unmute yourself.
Yeah. Okay, my poem is called Babushkas No Longer Keep Mama Warm, Swaddling on the Run. The Tsar of Antiquity spies a nail embedded in the soil, grips his hammer and sickle to dig it up and replant his way. Blinded by the sun's fury, as night falls, the moon's lunatic luster does not retreat to the sanity of the stars. Instead, they start coming where they shouldn't be. Plump cheeks, arms of tufted satin reach up for Papa's hug. Tiny fingers grab his helmet. Baby's gaze shifts, looks past his father's shoulder with a horror of dark, old eyes. He sees them coming where they shouldn't be. A passing child slips seeds of sunflowers into a torn pocket of a dead invader with a prayer to take root, bloom on another day, covering the bones of the misbegotten transgressors, their cousins, uncles, brothers, and they keep coming.
Thank you, Wheezy. Is there anybody else that I missed? Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Yep, got you. Let's go with yes, iPhone, please.
Suzanne.
Yes, Suzanne, please.
Okay, I have to find it on my phone.
Okay, and then we have Bonnie.
Okay. Can you see me, or what do you see? Because I'm reading.
That's okay. We don't see you, but we hear you just fine.
Okay. This has to do with a lot of what's being said, what we've seen on the news, and things that have horrified us and caused us to write these poems, which are so expressive. This is about Miami. In the agony of hoping, everyone prays for miracles after the building fell in on itself like an unimagined Armageddon of rocks and rubble, sending bomb-like clouds upward in stifling dust as open-mouthed spectators witnessed an unthinkable horror, occurring while all the residents slept or made love, watched TV, were sucked into the abyss of a death beyond description in a terror of unfathomable proportion. We all gasp in unison in the relief of life that has graced us, shaken as we all are, but standing here alive, breathing the crystalline air of pure being, just because luck placed us here now, in temporary safety and in the joyous revelation of surviving easily as others plummeted into the nightmare that swallowed them whole in seconds. As we question, as we anguish tearfully, we can't help wondering, why them? Why the innocence? Why the horrific demise of flesh and bone, humans just like us, their stories, their bios so deserving, so loved, so precious to many, obliterated all at once as the fingers of time snapped in an intractable command that said, now.
Thank you, Suzanne.
You're welcome.
Bonnie, please.
Well, I didn't have time. Am I on or not? I can't even tell. Can you hear me? Yeah. So I'm reading one from someone else, and this whole horror show that we're watching now with Ukraine brought to mind this poem that a lot of you may recognize. It always haunted me. It's by W.H. Auden, September 1st, 1939, which was the opening day of World War II when the Nazis invaded Poland. I sit in one of the dives on 52nd Street, uncertain and afraid, as the clever hopes expire of a low, dishonest decade. Waves of anger and fear circulate over the bright and darkened lands of the earth, obsessing our private lives. The unmentionable odor of death offends the September night. Accurate scholarship can unearth the whole offense from Luther until now that has driven a culture mad. Find what occurred at Linz, what huge imago made a psychopathic god. I and the public know what all school children learn. Those to whom evil is done do evil in return. Exiled Thucydides knew all that a speech can say about democracy and what dictators do. The elderly rubbish they talk to an apathetic grave, analyzed all in his book, The Enlightenment Driven Away. The habit-forming pain, mismanagement, and grief, we must suffer them all again. Into this neutral air where blind skyscrapers use their full height to proclaim the strength of collective man. Each language pours its vain, competitive excuse. But who can live for long in an euphoric dream? Out of the mirror they stare, imperialism's face and the international wrong. Faces along the bar cling to their average day. The lights must never go out. The music must always play. All the conventions conspire to make this fort assume the furniture of home. Lest we should see where we are, lost in a haunted wood, children afraid of the night, who have never been happy or good. The windiest militant trash, important persons shout, is not so crude as our wish. What mad Nijinsky wrote about Diaghilev is true of the normal heart. For the error bred in the bone of each woman and each man craves what it cannot have, not universal love, but to be loved alone. From the conservative dark into the ethical life, the dense commuters come, repeating their morning vow. I will be true to the wife. I'll concentrate more on my work. And helpless governors wake to resume their compulsory game. Who can release them now? Who can reach the deaf? Who can speak for the dumb? All I have is a voice to undo the folded lie, the romantic lie in the brain of the sensual man in the street, and the lie of authority whose buildings grope the sky. There is no such thing as the state, and no one exists alone. Hunger allows no choice to the citizen or the police. We must love one another or die. Defenseless under the night, our world in stupor lies, yet dotted everywhere, ironic points of light flash out wherever the just exchange their messages. May I, composed like them, of eros and of dust, beleaguered by the same negation and despair, show an affirming flame.
The perfect poem for now.
I was going to try to write one myself, and I was going to focus it on Odessa because it's such a beautiful city, and I just dread the horror show that's coming there. And then as I read more about Odessa, I realized it had been a real homeland for a lot of Jews. It was a very large Jewish community there. And so large, in fact, that it really influenced the culture. And apparently the Russian that the people speak there, or the Ukrainian, is very influenced by Yiddish. So that made me feel even shittier. And but I just felt so overwhelmed. And as the things keep getting worse and worse, it seems by each day, I just couldn't get my hands around it. But I really, I'm dreading what's going to happen to Odessa.
Wow.
Known in Russian as the Pearl of the Black Sea.
Hmm.
There it is.
Thank you, Bonnie. Oh. All right. Did anyone, I don't believe I've missed anyone. That's good. Oh, I did. Charlotte. I knew
Eileen,
it.
right? Eileen.
No, Eileen took herself off the list. But Charlotte, you had your hand raised, am I right? Yeah, please take yourself off mute, and we'd love to hear from you.
Thank you. This is called Altitude, a pantoum to the Ukrainian people. I begin with an epigraph by Carl Sagan. The earth is a very small stage in a vast cosmic arena. Think of the rivers of blood spilled by all those generals and emperors, so that in glory and in triumph, they could become the momentary masters of a fraction of a dot. Think of the endless cruelties visited by the inhabitants of one corner of the dot on scarcely distinguishable inhabitants of some other corner of the dot. How frequent their misunderstandings, how eager they are to kill one another, how fervent their hatreds. Our posturings, our imagined self-importance, the delusion that we have some privileged position in the universe are challenged by this point of pale light. To my mind, there is perhaps no better demonstration of the folly of human conceits than this distant image of our tiny world. To me, it underscores our responsibility to deal more kindly and compassionately with one another, and to preserve and cherish that pale blue dot, the only home we've ever known. The poem. I chose a pantoum because of the rhythm of it and the repetition, which seems to me to allude to the military. At what altitude does the world turn blue? Our fortune lofted on Pacific wind, we witness what has been taken from you. Your millions face death, refusing to bend. Our fortune lofted on Pacific wind, we suffer drowning in survivors' guilt. Your millions face death, refusing to bend, defiant against Putin's war, blood guilt. We suffer drowning in survivors' guilt as if you were disposable income, defiant against Putin's war, blood guilt. I'm helpless to help you find your way home. As if you were disposable income for domineering force, despicable deed. I'm helpless to help you find your way home, out of the crosshairs of a despot's greed. From domineering force, despicable deed, imagining unimaginable war here. Out of the crosshairs of a despot's greed, we trust democracy and hold peace dear. Imagining unimaginable war here, atomic weaponry, rockets, missiles, we trust democracy and hold peace dear to counteract selfish, demonic wiles. Atomic weaponry, rockets, missiles, deploy fortune's winds to go sweeping by, to counteract selfish, demonic, wild.